The auction hall smelled of metal, sweat, and fear. Hundreds of voices filled the air, shouting, laughing, and bidding as lights flashed over cages lined across the floor. Inside those cages were living beings and creatures from a dozen worlds, all for sale. But near the back, in the darkest corner, stood one cage left unsold. Inside sat a small alien girl with glowing silver eyes and marks across her skin that shimmered faintly under the light. Her wrists were bound with heavy restraints that hummed like quiet thunder. No one wanted her. The trader shouted, "Last lot of the night, the untamable one from Zynar colony, strong, fast, and impossible to control." The crowd jeered and laughed. Some called her dangerous. Others said she was cursed. She stared at them all with cold eyes, her sharp teeth showing slightly as if she might bite anyone who came too close. "Look at her," one alien sneered. She bit off her last owner's hand. "Let her rot there," another said. "She's useless." The trader slammed his staff on the floor. "Final call, anyone? 10,000 credits. 5,000. 1,000? Silence. The alien girl's breathing slowed. Her eyes fell to the floor. For the first time, a flicker of fear crossed her face. She whispered in her own language, words no one understood. Maybe a prayer, maybe a curse. And then, a quiet voice broke the silence. "I'll take her." Heads turned. A human stood near the back of the hall, dressed in dusty combat armor, a long coat hanging from his shoulders. He looked tired, scarred, and calm, too calm for this place. The trader blinked. "You a human? You know what she is?" "Yes," he said simply. "I'll pay." The crowd erupted in laughter. "A human buying a wild beast? He'll be dead by morning," someone shouted. But the man ignored them. He walked toward the cage, his boots echoing against the metal floor. The alien girl's eyes followed him. She hissed softly, a sound like a warning. Her silver pupils glowed brighter. He stopped in front of her cage and crouched down. "You don't deserve to be in a cage," he said quietly. Her head tilted slightly, confused. She didn't understand his words, but something in his voice made her hesitate. The trader unlocked the cage and pushed her forward roughly. She stumbled but didn't fall. The chains around her wrists clanked as the human caught her arm before she hit the ground. She jerked away, baring her teeth. "I won't hurt you," he said. She didn't believe him. None of her kind did. Humans were known as hunters, colonizers, crueler than most species she had met. Why was this one different? As they walked out of the auction hall, the crowd's laughter followed them like a storm. "Good luck, human," one alien shouted. "She'll kill you before sunrise." The man didn't answer. He kept walking, guiding her through the cold metal corridors toward the outside. The planet's red sun was setting, casting long shadows across the desert city. Dust swirled around them as wind howled between the towers. For a long time they walked in silence. The alien girl tugged at her chains again and again, but the human didn't react. He wasn't holding the chain tightly. It was as if he was giving her a choice, walk beside him or run. Finally she spoke, her voice low and rough. "Why, you buy me?" He looked at her, his expression unreadable. "Because everyone else saw a monster. I saw someone who wanted to be free." She blinked, not sure if he was mocking her or telling the truth. Freedom was a word she had forgotten. They reached a small ship waiting on the edge of the port. The human opened the ramp and motioned for her to enter. She hesitated. Every step she took away from that cage felt unreal. Inside, the ship was quiet, clean. She could smell old leather, metal, and warmth. He sat in the pilot's seat and started the engines. "You can sit," he said softly. "You're safe here." "Safe?" She repeated, her voice sharp. "With human?" He smiled faintly. "Safer than being sold." The engines roared, lifting the ship into the dark sky. The alien girl looked out the window as the city lights faded below them. She pressed her chained hands against the glass and whispered something, a word of sorrow or maybe of hope. The human glanced at her reflection in the glass. She was fierce, wild, and broken, but not beyond saving. He didn't know what would come next. But he knew one thing for sure: she wasn't just a purchase. She was a promise. And out there, in the endless stars, promises were dangerous things. The small ship drifted quietly through the endless dark of space. Stars shimmered outside like frozen sparks, and the engines hummed a steady rhythm. Inside, silence ruled, heavy and sharp. The alien girl sat on the floor, her back against the cold wall. Her silver eyes followed every move the human made. He was busy checking controls, repairing wires, and cleaning weapons. But he didn't speak to her. Not yet. She hated that silence. It made her feel small, and small was dangerous. Finally, she broke it.
"Why you not chain me to wall?"
she asked, her tone sharp and mocking. "Afraid I run?" The human didn't look up. "You can try." Her lips curved into a cruel smile. "You think you strong enough to stop me?" He turned his head slightly, calm as ever. "I don't need to stop you. Out there," he nodded toward the window, "there's nothing but vacuum. If you want freedom that way, I won't stop you." Her smile faded. She didn't reply. The truth in his voice made her chest tighten. Minutes passed. Then suddenly she moved, fast, wild, and silent. She grabbed a loose pipe and swung it toward him. The metal struck his shoulder and he stumbled back but didn't raise his weapon. He could have shot her. He didn't. Instead, he said quietly, "You done?" Her breath came fast. She expected anger, shouting, pain, punishment. But he just stood there, steady and calm, eyes soft but firm. "Why?" she hissed. "You not fight?" He looked at the blood trickling from his arm. "Because I've fought enough wars. I didn't buy you to fight another one." His voice wasn't angry. It was tired, and a kind of tired she had never heard before. The pipe slipped from her fingers and hit the floor with a clang. He sat down slowly across from her, keeping distance. "You think I own you," he said. "I don't. I just didn't want to see you rot in that cage." She glared at him, confusion mixing with pride. "Humans always want something." "What you want?" He looked out the window at the stars. "Peace, maybe," she frowned. "Peace? That word means nothing." He gave a faint smile. "Then maybe one day I'll teach you." She didn't understand why his words made her heartbeat change, and slower, heavier. She hated that feeling. She turned away and stared at the wall, pulling her knees to her chest. Hours later, when he fell asleep in the pilot's chair, she crept toward the control panel. Her chains were still locked, but her slender fingers reached for the navigation system. If she could change the coordinates, maybe she could crash the ship or escape when it landed. But as she leaned closer, she noticed something. A small photograph taped beside the controls. It showed the human standing with other soldiers, their faces young and smiling. In the middle of the photo was a little alien child with glowing blue skin, sitting on his shoulders, laughing. Her breath caught. She touched the photo gently. The child looked like one of her kind. A voice behind her said, "She was my friend's daughter. Died in a raid on Zynar, that's why I recognized your markings." She froze. He was awake. "I thought maybe saving you would make up for not saving her," he said softly. "But maybe that's just my guilt talking." She turned slowly to look at him. For the first time, she saw not a soldier, but a man who carried ghosts. He walked past her, checked the engine panel, and said quietly, "I'll land on a quiet moon soon. You'll be free to go if you want." Her lips parted. Freedom. The word that once burned in her chest now felt heavy. Where would she even go? Her people had sold her. The others feared her. When the ship finally landed on a barren moon covered in white dust, he opened the ramp. "You can leave now," he said. The alien girl stepped outside. Cold wind whipped through her silver hair. The stars above looked endless and too big, too empty. She took a few steps, then stopped. Behind her, the ship's lights glowed faintly. The human stood in the doorway, silent, waiting. He didn't call her back. He didn't beg her to stay, and that silence and that strange, quiet respect hurt more than any chain. She turned around slowly. "You not stop me," she said. "No," he replied. "Freedom means choice." Her eyes searched his face. For the first time, she didn't see a threat. She saw something else, something she didn't understand yet. She looked down at the metal cuffs on her wrists. "Then take these off," he nodded, stepping forward. With a soft click, the locks opened and the chains fell to the ground. The marks on her skin glowed faintly where the metal had burned her. He looked at her and said quietly, "You're free now." She stared at him for a long moment, then whispered, "We see." Without another word, she stepped back onto the ship. He blinked in surprise. "I thought you saved me," she interrupted, eyes hard. "But I'm not done with you yet." The engines came to life again as the ship lifted off the dusty ground. Outside, the stars shone brighter than before. Inside, two beings, once enemies, sat in silence again. But this time it was not anger that filled the air. It was something new, something dangerous. The desert planet of Vereen 9 stretched endlessly beneath their ship, a world of red dust, broken rock, and burning winds. When they landed, the air shimmered with heat. Nothing moved except the storms that crawled slowly across the horizon. The alien girl stepped out first. Her bare feet touched the hot ground, and her glowing silver eyes scanned the empty plains. "This place dead," she muttered. The human adjusted his backpack and replied, "That's why we're here. Dead places are safe places. No one looks for us in the dust." She gave a short laugh. "Safe? You always say that word." "Never true." He smiled faintly but said nothing. Together they began walking toward the North Ridge, where old ruins from a forgotten war still stood, cracked towers, half-buried weapons, and shadows that whispered when the wind passed through. For hours they walked in silence. The heat was cruel and their supplies were light. The human offered her a canteen, but she refused at first, pride flashing in her eyes. Only when her lips cracked from dryness did she snatch it from his hand and take a drink. "See?" he said gently. "Not everything I offer is a trick." She glared at him but didn't answer. Still, when she handed the bottle back, her fingers brushed his just for a second, and she didn't pull away. By nightfall, they reached the edge of the ruins. A broken city lay before them, built long ago by some unknown species. The human lit a small fire using fuel sticks, and the soft blue light filled the empty streets. The alien girl sat across from him, her eyes fixed on the flames. "You travel alone before me?" she asked suddenly. He nodded. "Always alone. Why?" He hesitated. "Because it's easier not to lose people." She tilted her head. "Lose like death?" "Yeah," he said quietly. "Like death." For a moment neither spoke. The wind outside howled through the ruins, making it sound as if ghosts were crying in the dark. She looked at him again. "Your eyes? They have same pain as mine." He met her gaze. "Maybe that's why I didn't walk away." Something changed in her then. Her shoulders softened, her eyes lowered. For the first time, she didn't look like a wild creature ready to fight. She looked tired. Before she could reply, a sound echoed through the ruins. Low, rumbling, wrong. The human stood quickly, drawing his blaster. "Stay close." From the shadows, shapes began to move. Tall, thin creatures with glowing red eyes and long claws. "Scavengers of the desert," the alien girl hissed. "They smell us. They'll attack," he said. "We stand together." She froze. "Together?" He nodded. "I cover you. You strike fast." For the first time, she obeyed. The scavengers rushed forward, their screeches sharp and wild. The human fired steady bursts, each shot lighting the darkness. The alien girl moved like lightning, her chains gone, her body free, every motion smooth and deadly. She leapt over a crumbling wall, slicing one creature's throat with a broken shard of metal. Another lunged at her, but the human shot it mid-air. They fought side by side, two beings from different worlds, united by survival. When the last scavenger fell, the night grew quiet again. Smoke drifted through the ruins, and the wind carried the smell of burned metal. The alien girl stood breathing hard, her silver eyes glowing bright. Blood streaked her cheek, not hers. She looked at the human and said softly, "You protect me." He lowered his weapon. "We protect each other." Something flickered in her chest, strange, new, dangerous. She didn't understand it, but she didn't want it to stop. Later, as they sat by the dying fire, she watched him clean his weapon. His arm was cut from the fight, but he acted like it didn't hurt. Without a word, she moved closer and reached for his arm. He froze as she pressed her glowing fingers against the wound. The light from her skin flowed into the cut, sealing it slowly. He stared in surprise. "You can heal. Only small wounds," she said quietly. "If I use too much, it kills me." He looked at her with respect. "You didn't have to do that." She gave a small smile. "You didn't have to buy me." The silence that followed wasn't heavy anymore, it was calm. For the first time since he met her, she didn't look like she wanted to run. She looked like she belonged, at least for the night. When she finally lay down beside the fire, the human whispered almost to himself, "You're not what they said you were." Her eyes were already closed, but she heard him. A faint smile touched her lips. "You neither, human." Above them, the stars moved slowly across the sky, silent witnesses to a bond no one would believe. And far in the distance, hidden behind the dunes, a red light blinked on a scanner. Someone somewhere had found their trail. The morning came with a red sun rising over the endless dunes. The heat shimmered like fire on the sand. The wind carried the smell of smoke on it, but not from their camp. The human's eyes narrowed. "We need to move. Someone's tracking us." The alien girl stood beside him, her silver eyes sharp. "You sure?" He pointed toward the horizon. Tiny black dots moved across the desert. Ships. "Hunters," he said quietly. "They found us." Without another word, they packed what little they had and began running across the dunes. The sand shifted under their boots. The sky above them rumbled with the engines of ships drawing closer. The alien girl glanced back. "They come fast." The human loaded his rifle. "Then we run faster." But the hunters didn't give them time. Within minutes, one of the ships descended, throwing up a storm of sand. From its hatch jumped armored figures, bounty hunters masked and armed with plasma rifles. "Stop right there," one shouted. "Turn over the Xynar female. The reward is triple for her alive." The human raised his weapon slowly. "You'll have to take her." The lead hunter laughed. "A human protecting an alien? That's rich. Step aside, soldier. We only want the girl." The alien girl stepped forward, her chains glinting in the sun. "You want me?" she hissed. "Come try." The first shots exploded. Blue plasma bolts burned through the sand. The human rolled behind a rock, firing back with precise bursts. The girl darted across the dunes, fast and fluid like a silver flame. She moved with fury, striking one hunter's mask with a shard of metal. Breaking it open, he screamed as she twisted his arm and threw him down. The human covered her flank, taking down two more. But there were too many. The sky darkened as more ships circled above. "Fall back," he shouted. "We can't hold them all." She didn't listen. Rage burned in her chest. The same rage that had chained her for years. The hunters shouted her name like she was prey. Something inside her snapped. Her silver eyes flared brighter than ever before. The air around her began to hum. The sand lifted in small spirals. The human saw it and froze. "What are you doing?" "I remember who I am," she whispered. Energy exploded outward from her body, a shockwave of silver light that tore through the dunes. The hunters were thrown back, their armor cracking under the force. Ships above wobbled, losing balance as the wave hit them. The human shielded his face from the blinding light. When it faded, silence returned. The hunters lay scattered across the sand. Smoke rose from their ships. The alien girl stood in the middle of the destruction, her chest rising and falling fast. The marks on her skin glowed bright white, then dimmed slowly. The human ran to her. "Are you all right?" She looked at her hands, shaking. "I didn't mean to." "You saved us," he said softly. Tears glimmered in her eyes. "No, I killed them." He touched her shoulder gently. "They would have killed us first." She looked up at him, her voice trembling. "That power? That's why they caged me. They said I was too dangerous to live free." The human met her eyes. Maybe they were afraid of what they couldn't control. She swallowed hard, then turned toward the fallen hunters. "More will come. They always come." He nodded. "Then we keep moving." As they climbed another dune, the human staggered. Blood darkened his side, a hidden wound from the fight. The alien girl gasped. "You hurt." He smiled weakly. "Just a scratch." She pulled him down behind a rock and pressed her glowing hands to his wound. "Don't talk." Warm light spread through his body. Pain faded slowly. When she stopped, she looked pale. "You shouldn't have used that much," he said. She looked at him, her voice quiet. "You saved me. Now I save you." For a long moment, they sat together in the burning desert, the wind wrapping around them like whispers from the past. The human looked at her and said, "You could have run." "You didn't." She met his eyes. "You could have left me." "You didn't." They both smiled, small, tired, real. But far away, beyond the dunes, a signal blinked on a distant screen. The bounty hunter's distress beacon had been activated before they died. Someone much worse had just learned where they were. The night on Varine 9 was cold and cruel. The sand that burned by day now froze like glass under their feet. A silent fire flickered beside the wreck of an old ship where the human and the alien girl hid. She sat alone, staring at the broken metal cuffs that still circled her wrists, no longer locked yet still faintly alive. The scars beneath them pulsed faintly, as if something inside the metal breathed. The human was busy repairing a communicator, trying to block any signal that could track them again. "If they found us once," he said, "they can do it again. We need to move before sunrise." But the alien girl wasn't listening. She was watching the faint blue glow on her cuffs. These not normal chains, she said softly. They whisper, he frowned. Whisper? She nodded. When I sleep, I hear voices. Not in words, in pain. The human moved closer, examining the cuffs. He touched one lightly and his hand jerked back. It's warm, he said. And pulsing? It lives, she whispered. He stared at her. That's impossible. No, she said. Zynar lords make chains from living metal. They feed on fear. They keep slaves weak. Make sure power stays silent. He looked again, this time with a small scanning tool. The screen flickered with strange patterns. There's an organic core inside. Something reacting to your blood. She turned her gaze away. That is why I could not break them. They drink from me. Every time I use power, they take it. The human's expression darkened. Then they're not just chains. They're prison parasites. She looked at him, eyes filled with quiet fury. You think you can free me from that? He met her gaze firmly. I'll try. He worked through the night. He dismantled his weapon, used the energy cells to power a small cutter, and tried to slice the metal open. Sparks flew, but the cuffs resisted. When he pressed harder, the energy burned his fingers. Stop, she said. It hurts. He stopped immediately. Sorry, she sighed. Pain means chain still awake. It knows you try. He stared at the glowing bands again. So we have to kill it before we can remove it. She shook her head. If it dies while connected, it will kill me too. He looked frustrated, his jaw tight. There has to be another way. For a while, neither spoke. The wind howled outside the wreck and stars shimmered through the cracks in the ceiling. Then he said quietly, These chains, they send signals, don't they? She blinked. Yes, to masters, he frowned. Then that's how the hunters found us. They're tracking you through the living metal. Her face hardened. Then you should leave me. They follow my blood, not yours, he shook his head. I don't leave people behind. She looked at him for a long time. You strange human. Most would sell me again. I'm not most, he replied simply. Later that night, the communicator sparked. A voice distorted by static came through. Unit 47, this is command. You are harboring Zynar property. Return the specimen or be terminated. The human's face went pale. They're military, he whispered. My own kind. The alien girl's eyes widened. Your people hunt me? He didn't answer. He turned off the communicator and stared into the fire. Why they call me property? She asked quietly. Because, he said slowly, Zynar and humans made a deal years ago. Slaves in exchange for weapons. You were part of that deal. Her voice trembled with anger. You knew? No, he said quickly. I was a soldier then. I thought we were helping refugees, not selling them. She turned away, her voice sharp and cold. You say you different, but your kind still make cages. He closed his eyes. You're right. That's why I'm trying to break this one. Silence fell again, heavy, painful, real. Before dawn, he tried one last idea. He connected his suit's power cord to the cuffs, overloading them with energy. The light from the chains grew brighter, shaking violently. Hold still, he shouted. The alien girl screamed as the living metal writhed, tightening around her wrists. The glow burst into white flame. The whole wreck trembled. Then, a sharp crack, and the metal shattered into dust. Smoke rose from her skin. The marks on her wrists burned bright, then slowly faded. He dropped beside her, panting. You okay? She blinked, breathing hard, then looked at her hands. It's gone. He smiled weakly. Free for real this time. But before they could rest, a red light blinked on the communicator again. Not a call this time, but a warning. The destroyed cuffs had sent one final pulse. A tracking beacon. Hundreds of miles away, in the upper orbit of Varine 9, a massive ship turned its sensors toward them. The Zynar lords now knew exactly where their lost weapon was. The night sky burned red above Varine 9. Far in orbit, the Zynar warship glowed like a scar across the stars, sending dropships down toward the desert. The sand trembled as engines screamed through the air. The human watched from the ridge, his rifle in hand, his jaw set tight. They're coming, he said quietly. The alien girl stood beside him, her silver eyes glowing in the dim light. You freed me, she whispered. Now they come for you too. He smiled faintly. Then we fight together. She shook her head. You cannot win. They bring armies. Doesn't matter, he said. I've run from too many battles. Not this one. The wind whipped across the dunes, carrying the distant roar of approaching ships. The human adjusted the energy cells on his armor. His left arm still bore the burns from breaking her chains, but he didn't care. The alien girl watched him, confused. "Why you do this?" He looked at her, his voice calm. "Because you deserve to live free. Because someone should stand up, even if it's only one human." For a long moment, she didn't speak. Her heart, once cold as stone, felt something she didn't understand. Respect, fear, and something deeper. The first dropship landed in the distance, sending a wave of sand into the air. Armored soldiers stepped out, their helmets gleaming with blue lights. Behind them, a tall Xynar commander walked forward, his armor marked with royal symbols. His voice echoed through speakers. "Return the girl, human. She belongs to the Xynar lords." The human's voice carried across the wind. "She belongs to no one." The commander laughed. "Do you even know what she is? She's not a person. She's a weapon that destroyed cities. We built her to kill." The alien girl froze. "What'd he say?" The human looked at her gently. "Don't listen. They only know control." The commander raised his weapon. "Step aside, soldier, or die with your pet." The human raised his rifle. "Then I'll die on my feet." The battle began in a storm of fire. Plasma bolts lit the night like lightning. Explosions shook the dunes. The human fired again and again, hitting targets with soldier precision. The alien girl moved beside him faster than light, her energy glowing through her veins. Every time she raised her hands, the sand itself turned into a storm, blinding the enemy. But the Xynar forces were endless. For every one they struck down, two more appeared. The human was bleeding from his shoulder now, but he didn't stop. He kept shooting, reloading, shouting commands she barely understood. "Left flank. Duck now!" "Good, keep moving." At one point, a plasma round hit his chest plate, throwing him to the ground. The alien girl screamed his name and ran to him. "Stay back," he gasped, trying to rise, but she didn't listen. She stood over him, her power flaring. The marks on her skin burned bright white, and the air cracked around her like thunder. The Xynar commander aimed his weapon at her. "You were made to obey, not fight for a human." Her voice trembled with fury. "Then I was made wrong." She unleashed a wave of light that shattered the ground. The sand exploded upward, swallowing the Xynar soldiers in a blinding storm. The warship above wavered, systems shorting out from the energy surge. When the light faded, the battlefield was silent. The dunes were blackened, smoking. The human lay still, half buried in the sand. She dropped beside him, tears streaking her face. "No, please." He opened his eyes weakly. "You did it? You're hurt," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "I've been worse." She tried to heal him, pressing her glowing hands against his wounds, but her strength was fading. "Please don't die." "Not now." He reached up and touched her cheek. "You're free now. That's all that matters." "No," she cried. "You free me. Now I free you from death." She poured every bit of her remaining power into him. Her skin dimmed, her glow fading, but she didn't stop. The light from her hands flowed into his chest, closing his wounds one by one. Finally, the light vanished. She fell beside him, breathing weakly. He caught her before she hit the ground. "Hey, stay with me." She smiled faintly. "You said, humans don't give up." He nodded. "Neither do you." They sat there together under the blood-red sky as the last ship in the distance burned and fell. The war was not over, but something greater had begun. Hours later, the human stood carrying her gently in his arms. He looked across the silent desert, now a graveyard of machines and soldiers. He whispered, "We survived. Somehow." Her voice was weak but calm. "Because you didn't give up." He looked down at her. "And because you didn't run." For a moment, their eyes met. Soldier and weapon, human and alien, both broken, both reborn. And far above them, unseen through the clouds, another ship watched, silent and waiting. The Xynar lords were not finished yet. The sky above Varine 9 turned black as ash. The stars disappeared behind the shadow of a massive Xynar command ship, a beast of metal stretching across the heavens. Its engines thundered, shaking the dunes below. The human and the alien girl stood together near the wreck of their ship. The wind whipped through the desert, carrying sparks of fire and dust. "They found us again," he said quietly, his voice rough but steady. The alien girl's silver eyes glowed faintly. She could feel it. the Xenar's presence pulsing in her blood like poison. "They never stop," she whispered. "Not until I'm in a cage again." He turned to her. "Then we don't give them that chance." She stared at him. "You mean to fight?" "Again," he nodded. "Until the last breath." Her heart clenched. Humans were strange, fragile bodies with iron souls. "You will die," she said softly. He smiled. "Maybe, but I'll die free." "That's enough." She looked at him for a long moment, then took a step closer. Not alone. Moments later, the first wave came. Dozens of Xenar dropships broke through the clouds, firing blue fire across the dunes. The explosions painted the night sky with streaks of light. The human crouched behind a ridge, firing at the landing soldiers. Every shot hit true, but there were too many. The alien girl stood beside him, her skin glowing brighter with every blast. The marks across her arms shimmered like rivers of light. "They will take you alive," he said. "Run if you must," she shook her head. "No, I'm done running." A plasma bolt struck near them, throwing sand into the air. The human fell, coughing. The alien girl turned toward the enemy lines, fury blazing in her eyes. "Enough!" she cried. The ground trembled. The air turned white. Energy burst from her body like lightning. Sand lifted into the sky as if gravity had broken. The Xenar soldiers screamed, their weapons melting in their hands. The warship above tried to fire, but its cannons froze mid-shot, then exploded outward. The human shielded his face from the storm of light. "Stop, you'll burn yourself out." Her voice echoed across the dunes, calm, powerful, unstoppable. "I was made to destroy, but this time, I choose what to save." She raised her hands to the sky, and the chains of energy that once bound her shattered completely. The glow spread outward, swallowing the horizon. The Xenar fleet disintegrated like dust under the sun. When the light faded, silence filled the world. The alien girl collapsed to her knees, her body trembling. The sand around her was glass now, smooth and shining. The human stumbled toward her, his armor cracked, his face covered in dust. He knelt beside her. Hey, stay with me." Her breathing was shallow, but she smiled faintly. "It's over." He shook his head. "No, you're fading." "Don't do this," she touched his cheek weakly. "You gave me freedom. I gave you peace. That is fair trade." He grabbed her hand tightly. "No trade, you live." "That's an order." She laughed softly, the first real laugh he'd ever heard from her. "You think still command?" Tears welled in his eyes. "Because I care." Her glowing eyes softened. "Then, I will stay." Hours later, the storm cleared. The desert was quiet again. No ships, no chains, no hunters. Only two figures sat beneath the pale dawn. The human had built a small shelter from what remained of the wreck. The alien girl lay wrapped in his coat, weak but alive. Her skin no longer glowed, but her eyes shone brighter than ever. "Where will you go now?" he asked. She looked at the rising sun. "Anywhere the sky's open," he smiled. "That sounds like freedom." She turned to him. "And you?" He shrugged. "I'll follow the stars until I find something worth staying for." She stared at him for a moment, then said softly, "Maybe you already did." They sat in silence, watching the twin suns climb higher. The air smelled of dust and new beginnings. Far above, the wreckage of the Xenar fleet floated in orbit, silent proof that even the strongest empire could fall before two souls who refused to give up. Later, as they prepared to leave, the human found the broken pieces of her old cuffs half buried in the sand. He picked one up and tossed it into the fire. "No more chains," he said quietly. The alien girl smiled. "No more cages." They climbed aboard the half-working ship and lifted off slowly, leaving trails of smoke behind. The desert below glowed golden in the morning light, the place where a weapon became a woman, and a soldier found his reason to live. As the ship broke through the clouds, the human looked at her and asked, "So what should I call you now?" She turned her silver eyes toward him and whispered, "Call me Free," he smiled. "Then let's see where freedom takes us." The ship vanished into the stars, two unlikely hearts carried by light, leaving behind a world that once caged them both.